We're in March, which means March Madness is on the way for the NCAA, but don't be mistaken. With the playoffs around the corner for some and the offseason around the corner for others, the NBA certainly experiences a March Madness of its own, and low-key has been all over the place. And you know what? I kind of feel like being all over the place. So much so that we ain't doing a 3-verse format this episode. Nah. I want to talk a little bit about everything going on, like maybe how the Suns are likely going to look totally different next season, or how I'm personally struggling to believe in the Indiana Pacers despite their success, and even assess how realistic a Celtics vs. Lakers NBA Finals might be this season, okay? I love talking hoops, so let's talk hoops, man. Alright, definitely going to be a good show today with a lot of variety, so as always, get your popcorn ready for it all, coming right now on H2DG. Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip-hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip-hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast, it's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip-hop, you've come to the right place. Welcome to this episode of Hip to the Games. Shout out to you if you are a loyal listener and are Hip to the Games certified, listening or tuning in visually for another show. Whether you are listening on your favorite podcast platform or watching on YouTube right now, I sincerely thank you for all your support. And if you do happen to be new to H2DG, welcome. I am happy to have you here. If throughout this episode you do like what you're hearing, be sure to hit that subscribe button or that follow button on whatever platform you're listening to or watching on to stay tapped in with all things Hip to the Games. Follow the socials, follow the YouTube channel, the personal YouTube channel at Desmond Powell. H2DG is my YouTube handle. Okay, all things Hip to the Games coming at you. We got the short form content on the YouTube. Obviously, you got the podcast here, which is the main thing. So a lot of stuff going on around Hip to the Games as always. You know where to find me though. But before we really get into today's episode, you already know the drill. I got to get my pregame shout-outs out the way. You know the first one always goes to the creative director, Jesus Christ, for another H2DG episode, as it's always a blessing to get in front of this microphone and do what he's placed in my heart to do. And the second one goes to my 19 Media Group family for the opportunity to represent the home team. All right, you see that blue and white logo sitting in the corner. I don't even think I pointed in the right direction, but we'll see. That's the home team. So be sure to follow 19M Group on Twitter, 19 Media Group on Instagram, 19 Media Group on YouTube to follow everything going on with the network. We got a variety of shows around sports, music, education, culture, hosted by some passionate independent podcasters in this space, man. And I'm sure you can find another teammate of mine to support. They really work hard and do a lot of creative things, on their own shows. So it's really dope to be a part of. And I know you can find another teammate of mine to support, whether it's through likes, comments, reposts, listens, buying merch. Any of that support is seen, felt, and appreciated. Now, as we get into today's hefty episode, I want to start by tackling the situation that the Phoenix Suns find themselves in. But before that, real quick, as the season gets closer to the playoffs, here's how you can warm up for the playoffs in your own way and win big with H2DG's latest sponsor. Basketball season is heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed when you use the promo code CLNS. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts and is available in more than 30 states including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Prize Picks is truly the best way to win real money with all the various opportunities to play and collect your winnings. Due to the enormous selection of players and stat types available, we can mix and match our playing strategies based on personal preferences. I might take Nikola Jokic for more than 8 assists and Donovan Mitchell for more than 25 points. Do you think Steph Curry will get more than 5 3-pointers next week? Giannis maybe for more than 35 points? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. And for those who love a quick win, Prize Picks is the way to go. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. So what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Remember, with Prize Picks, it's as simple as picking more or picking less. And again, that's promo code CLNS to get $50 after you play your first $5 lineup. Hip to the games is rocking with Prize Picks, and you should too. Prize Picks, run your game. It's been no secret that the Phoenix Suns have underperformed since they formed the trio of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal. And I think there were many of us who knew it was going to be a rough transition, essentially replacing Chris Paul, right? A traditional Hall of Fame point guard with Brad Beal, another scoring champion. Yet you had the folks out there like, oh, they'll be fine. It's positionless basketball. They'll figure it out. Right. And Devin Booker has shown to play the point guard position just as well as he plays the two. Like, don't get it twisted. And while I think they've shown flashes of that being the case, right, that positionless basketball kind of works, it didn't translate to sustainable basketball. That's the thing. I feel like sometimes we throw the phrase positionless basketball out there and it glorifies the depth of the basketball that we're seeing nowadays. But a lot of that positionless basketball kind of isn't always sustainable for a lot of these teams, and they end up finding out the hard way. Then they have to rebuild. Then they have to make a trade that they didn't have to want to make, right? And I think the Suns kind of find themselves in that situation. But see, the thing that confused me in the first place is that people like myself lobbied for them to get a point guard, a true point guard. And again, that doesn't always mean pass first, but just somebody who can run an offense confidently, who knows that their job, that their first priority isn't to score, right? It's whether, no matter how many assists they average. I say this all the time. It's getting guys in proper positions. It's low key or high key being on the same page with the coach to the point where you can look over and know that the coach is thinking the same thing you're thinking. Like I'm talking about that kind of point guard, right? And they pretty much got one. They got one of the more efficient ones over the last few seasons in Tyus Jones, and I was excited for that. And you know what? That's the thing. The first couple weeks of the season, the Suns actually looked really good. They were among the tops in the West. And as somebody, again, who is a firm believer that every team, whether they start or come off the bench, needs at least one point guard, who knows how to be a floor general, who knows how to be at the very least, a capable quarterback of the offense. I was happy that they got Tyus Jones. I was happy that it was translating to better basketball. But suddenly, KD missed time. Then there was a time Book was out. Then as the momentum shifted, you could feel it, right? And then it's like, dang, we got to try something new. They even tried bringing Brad Beal off the bench. They made trades in the recent trade deadline. They're trying different lineups. They're starting Bol now, and it seems like no matter what they tried since those first couple weeks of the season, the Suns couldn't find any consistency. Now, again, the one thing we can't forget about the Phoenix Suns is just the fact that they are in a very tough Western Conference. We knew this before the season. It's actually kind of fun to have trouble doing your preseason picks of who's going to make the playoffs, because at the end of the day, you're going to leave out about 2 to 3 teams that are capable of making the actual playoffs, but are literally going to not even make the play-in because of how stacked the West is. And then, of course, there's always injuries, things of that nature that change the whole scenario. So, yeah, it's we got to remember that with the Suns. They're just in a very tough conference also. There are at least 8 other teams that probably have better chemistry and roster makeup than the Suns. So we can't, it's not all the way the Suns' fault. That's certainly going to make a difference. But I mentioned this in a video on my YouTube channel. We are simply in an era also where star power is not going to carry a team over the hump the way it used to. Depth is everything in this era. Depth is the new superpower in this era. As great as Book and KD are, it's going to take a lot more to beat a OKC, a Denver, a Houston Rockets, the Lakers on a consistent basis. And see, again, that's why I'm so confused, though, because it's like, why can't a team led by Kevin Durant and Devin Booker that has solid supporting pieces in Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, right? But like I said, Bo's getting minutes and he's contributing. Nick Richards. Why can't these dudes win consistently? Why can't they even be as good as the Los Angeles Clippers or even the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? Teams that are not that great, but have shown to have some sustainable success over the course of the season. Why can't even the Suns be as good as those teams? But after watching their recent, I caught their recent overtime loss versus the Nuggets. That was a great game, by the way. They showed a lot of fight coming back, too. Obviously, the Nuggets, they had a great first half shooting the three, and then that trailed off in the second half. That's partially why the Suns were able to come back. But it was a good game. But I noticed that there was a drastic difference between the two teams, especially come overtime. You saw it the most in overtime. Once overtime hit, the Nuggets knew what they wanted to do every single trip down. And the Suns, on the other hand, seemed like they were just trying. They were just hoping to win. They didn't even have an agenda in overtime, right? And even throughout many of their games, you can look back and it just seems like they are trying to live off Kevin Durant and Devin Booker mid-range jumpers. Like, at the end of the day, that's how I see the Phoenix Suns. When I watch the Denver Nuggets, I know that they're going to play through Jokic in the post. I know they throw the ball to Jokic and he knows, hey, this possession, I want to dribble handoff with Jamal Murray. Hey, this possession, I want Aaron Gordon to set a screen and short roll and then, right, we'll have another cutter, like all those things. When you watch, when you watch, obviously, the Golden State Warriors, we know that they're going to use a lot of off-ball actions to get Steph open. But even through those off-ball actions, other guys can get open. They're going to have cutters as well. It's you see things with different teams. And you just don't see that with the Phoenix Suns. It just seems like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are just going to take turns taking mid-range jumpers, and we're just going to see how it goes. Like, that's pretty much what I get when I watch them. And as if things couldn't get worse, there are strong beliefs that Coach Budenholzer is going to be out of there, which will mark 3 different head coaches in 3 years for them. Not a good sign, right? And on top of that, after throwing his name out during the trade deadline, Kevin Durant is likely to be traded this offseason, right? Because they can no longer trade for Brad Beal for a major return because his value is not nearly the same as it was when they first got him, and it's definitely not what it was when he was a scoring champion. So what are they trying to do? Rebuild, contend, stay afloat? Because teams, even in this mess situation, you're going to have teams inquiring on Devin Booker just to see what's up. Like, hey, if you don't like it over here no more, come over to Houston. Or, hey, come back home to Detroit. We got something building over here. Devin Booker, I think he's been vocal about how much he wants to stay in Phoenix, right? A lot like Damian Lillard. You want to be Kobe Bryant. You want to be Dirk Nowitzki. You want to play for one team your whole career, but that's just unfortunately not the NBA that we're in anymore. Teams are always looking to try to see what they can do. Nobody is as patient as they used to be. Nobody wants to stick it out and really build a core and have a core for multiple years. We just don't see a lot of that anymore. I think if they keep Devin Booker, well, what is he really going to do? Average a career high in points, but be 12th in the West? At that point, he'd be going backwards. And even Kevin Durant, what does he want to do? What does he want the end of his career to look like? To me, he needs to get traded to a team that is literally a shot creator away from a championship, much like he did in summer 2016, right? I would even consider going back to OKC, maybe Houston, right? I know the Spurs were thrown out there. There were some rumors, but you got to imagine the Suns are going to want a lot in return for KD. So, especially younger teams, right? They got to consider sacrificing draft picks or even valuable blossoming players on their roster already. The Suns might as well rebuild, in my opinion. Let Book go back home to a rising Detroit team. Give them an elite shot creator that they'll need if they want to play for championships. Find KD a suitable situation. Trade Beal to a team like Indiana. Shoot, Utah's got some pieces that they can gather, I think, to at least help out in a multi-team trade. I'm not good with the numbers, but at least to me on paper, Beal just needs to go to a team where there is less pressure for him to perform, where he can tap into that role that he had earlier in his career with the Washington Wizards. And unfortunately, that might even mean playing for a team that's outside the playoff conversation. Like, again, I think we got to be real sometimes and understand how human these athletes are. Somebody might hear me say, Des, why the heck would Brad Beal want to play for Utah? And I understand that, but it's like, at the end of the day, you want to play basketball. This is what you love doing. You want to play basketball. Obviously, yes. Do you want to win? Absolutely. But it's like, bro, you're not going to be the guy. Like, you could easily go to somewhere like Milwaukee and have the same experiences you had in Phoenix, even though I think Milwaukee would be a much better fit for him compared to Phoenix. But it's just like, you get into this phase where you're just hopping from contender to contender and things aren't really sustainable or you find yourself unhappy. That's the thing. Like I just think, again, with if Brad Beal can find a role, like I said, I would love for him to go somewhere like Indiana. He's going to get a lot of shots with Tyrese Halliburton and that high-octane offense. Like, that would be fun. I think that would be really fun. That would get his joy back, right? Like, if he can stay healthy, that would be a good situation. He doesn't have to worry about dropping 30, dropping 40. You know what I'm saying? Just get back to how you played in Washington early in your career with John Wall, man, where you were more of a shooter as opposed to a scorer. Like, get the pressure off and just find a new situation, But man, just even talking about this team just makes my head hurt, man. One thing's for sure though, things are changing in Phoenix, and it might not be the kind of change owner Matt Ishbia wants to see moving forward. So definitely let me know your thoughts on what you think about the Phoenix Suns, because I can't talk about them too long. They're going to make my head hurt. So with that in mind, let's just talk about a team that I actually just mentioned. Let's move on and talk about the Indiana Pacers, because the biggest question I have for you is, why should I believe in the Indiana Pacers? Okay, this is a team who has had a much better second part of the season thanks to the improved play of Tyrese Halliburton and the way Pascal Siakam isn't afraid to be the go-to guy a lot of nights. They have incredible ball movement and depth. This team truly lives up to their name. They will literally outpace you most nights. They have, they just got a lot of guys that can contribute, but I'm having a really hard time believing in them, man. I just really am. Like, I've noticed as a basketball fan, right? Pay attention to my word choice. As a basketball fan, I enjoy how they play the game. If I was reintroducing the NBA to somebody, I would tell them that the Pacers are the poster child of 2025 basketball, not just NBA, but literally what the game of basketball has become, period. Play as fast as possible, run in transition, shoot threes, encourage ball movement, play 10 deep, and make sure 7 or 8 of those guys score in double figures, right? Even if it's ugly, that's the kind of basketball you want to play. That's the kind of basketball that's popular nowadays. Maybe get you a rim protector, like a Miles Turner, and a versatile forward like Pascal Siakam to make up for what you lose in the collective of role players in rotation, right? But as a basketball historian, I can't help but believe I've seen this movie before, and I'm trying to warn others to not fall for their regular season showcase. Okay? Flow with me. Aside from the Reggie Miller years in the 90s and the mid-2000s, and the couple Paul George years, the Pacers have always been a mediocre organization. And that's not a bad thing. A lot of people, we throw this, we throw that word mediocre out here. And, obviously the term mid has gotten so big among the youth. It's almost like a diss nowadays to be mediocre. Some teams just stay afloat. Some teams just know how to be good for a long time, but not necessarily get great, And I've always said, at best, the Indiana Pacers, they know how to get really, really good, but they have never been able to be great, in my opinion. They might be bad for a few years, but at some point they will be a playoff team or even a contender again. But at some point, that cycle's going to repeat. They're going to be bad, then they're going to work their way up, then they're going to be really good, then they're going to fall short, then they're going to be bad, then they're going to go right back up. That cycle's going to continue. But I think, honestly, too, Part of that is because they lost to better teams. We have to admit that as well. The 98 Bulls, the 2000 Lakers, right? MVP Shaq, 2004 Pistons, the 2012-2014 Miami Heat. These were all better teams that they lost to. Reggie's teams were among the top of the league in offense. Once he got older, defense became their identity. Very similarly in Paul George's tenure, a lot of those teams were scrappy. 5 guys were going to score in double digits, but they weren't going to score 100. But they were going to hold the other team to like 85. Defense became their identity, but they failed because they didn't have the offense to supplement that elite defense. And then even today, it's in reverse, right? They are one of the better offensive teams in the league, but not great defensively. And for me, their formula, that's great for regular season basketball. That is entertaining. It's going to sell tickets. It's going to win you some dope games against a lot of teams. But come playoff time, when that joint slows down and the game starts looking a little bit more like 2015 as opposed to 2025, you don't know what to do because that track meet basketball is not flowing the way it was. Like I always say, man, things change come April. When teams get that big old binder, I don't even know if they still do this anymore, but when opposing teams get that big old binder with everything you did over an 82 game season, and especially everything they did against the 3 to 4 games they played against you. When your matchup knows that they will have at least 4 games to focus solely on you, right? Guys are going to sleep different. Guys are going to eat a different breakfast. Guys are going to watch film to the point where they know your game. They don't just have an idea of your game. They know your game. Every time he goes left, he likes to step back. Every time he's caught in the post, he don't like spinning. He don't take advantage of that space. So I can cut that off. Because he's not going to spin. Or if I know, you like to take 2 dribbles right and pull up. If I jam you up, what you going to do? Right? And I question if the Pacers are going to be ready for that. Because we saw last season, they were able to get past some injury-riddled teams before being swept by the eventual champions in the Boston Celtics. This is their year to show that their basketball is legit. Because I don't believe it, if I'm being honest. Like I said, I don't believe in all that track meet basketball from April to June. It works in spurts, but at some point, that game going to slow down. And if anything, when that happens, I'm optimistic solely because of Pascal Siakam. He has the half-court game to kind of balance that, right? He's a champion. He was on that 2019 Raptors team. He came up, he was a rookie, I believe, in 2016-17 season. So that was kind of the last year we started to see the NBA, if you're around my age, the NBA we grew up loving, that style of basketball started to go down the drain. So he has Pascal knows a little bit what it's like to kind of be on a team, in an organization that has won and that, that half-court game is still alive. So I have a lot of optimism of what he brings to the team. But, the thing is, and again, I don't want anybody to confuse me for like sounding like a hater or something like that. Because I want you to understand, as I say all these things, the thing that has been in the back of my mind is, well, Desmond, you realize you grew up watching the San Antonio Spurs, who played different than anyone else in the league. Sure, Tim Duncan was their post presence. Tony Parker was the slasher. Manu Ginobili was their go-to guy when they really needed buckets, right? They have pretty much had one superstar in the form of 3 players, right? If you put all those 3 guys together, you'd have an amazing basketball player. But they each brought separate strengths to the team that helped them in the long run. But, in grand scheme, they didn't have a Kobe. The Spurs never had a Kobe. They never had a LeBron, whoever you want to name. So why can't the Pacers find similar success, right? How come the Pacers can't do what the Spurs did? Who's to say that the Pacers wouldn't be able to do what the Spurs did back then in this era and show teams that, hey, Tyrese Halliburton is a pass-first point guard. Miles Turner isn't necessarily a post presence. He's more of a face-up guy. Pascal Siakam isn't this crazy superstar. He doesn't have this crazy, 3-level scorer type game. But he definitely has a great repertoire about him to where he can show flashes of being that guy, you know. But everybody else is pretty much a role player, you know. That's kind of how the Spurs were. You know, you had your stars, but you had a lot of role players, and it all just worked together. It all just happened to work together. So why can't the Pacers do the same thing? That's what pops in my head in the midst of all these thoughts. And so I'm not saying last year was a fluke for the Pacers. I won't go as that far, but they definitely have something to prove this year. You got to prove that y'all can still have a deep playoff run and maybe even show flashes that you can play in June. Obviously, we don't see them getting past Cleveland. We don't see them getting past Boston, not even New York, right? Maybe not even Milwaukee. But, you know, I think this is their chance for them to show how legit they can be. Or else they're going to start realizing very soon that cycle is going to repeat. They're going to say, well, our basketball is great for the regular season, but now we might have to consider making some changes in some way, shape, or form because it's just not translating to true contending basketball, you know? But that's the thing. You question, do the Pacers, if history is going to repeat itself, you question, do the Pacers even really want to win? I know that's what Paul George said when he left. He realized they didn't really want to win like they said they wanted to win, you know? So yeah, I think the Pacers, man, it's hard for me to believe in them. They got a great system about them, but it's hard for me to believe that the cycle won't repeat itself. So if you're a Pacer fan, I would love for you to give me a pitch as to why I should believe in them a little bit more, because they're good, but I can't help but believe they just won't really get to the next level of success because that cycle is just bound to repeat itself. So the Suns seem to be knocking on the door of a new era, while the Pacers are looking to prove that their previous season wasn't a fluke. What are your thoughts on both situations? What's the ideal move for Phoenix? How legit are the Pacers? Be sure to share your thoughts with me down below if you're watching on YouTube, or at me on the socials at Hip to the Games or at Desmond Powell _ to share those thoughts with me, as I would love to read them and know what you think as well. But I still got some more NBA madness up for you next. But if you like what you're hearing and want to know how you can show some love for Hip to the Games first, here's how you can do that. As a fan of Hip to the Games, not only should you show your love for the podcast, but you gotta express your love for basketball and hip-hop. With a wide variety of clothing and accessories, there is always a way to show how much the game of basketball and the game of rap means to you. Let everybody know what it means to be hip to the games by clicking the link in the episode's description to cop some merch and represent the H2DG lifestyle. Welcome back to Hip to the Games, where I'm continuing to share my thoughts on all the recent madness going on in the NBA. And man, somebody tell Stella to move out the way, because it's the Golden State Warriors who got their groove back, man. Ever since the Jimmy trade, this team has found their momentum again. And this is why I was so high on him going to the Warriors when he first requested the trade. At that time, I'm pretty sure I was higher on Phoenix and Dallas. I felt like they needed him more. But I totally saw the vision with what he potentially wanted in Golden State. I said it before, man. I said it on here when the news broke. He was going for the Andre Iguodala role, right? So many people were like, how is Jimmy going to fit? He doesn't really shoot threes. What is it going to look like? And now finally seeing it on the court, it's really like an Andrew Wiggins and Andre Iguodala hybrid role, right? When the Warriors offense gets flat, he's capable of scoring and even getting to the free throw line like Andrew Wiggins, and even at a higher level than Andrew Wiggins, you know, but he can also focus on being an on-court coach, making the right passes, making the right cuts, playing good defense, and bringing true fiery leadership like Andre Iguodala did, right? Those are the kinds of players that help the Warriors. Because, shoot, even look back to 2015, having Sean Livingston, right? His mid-range and his post-game, having Leandro Barbosa, even at his older age, was still a really good shot creator and a streaky shooter / scorer for them. You know, obviously, eventually Kevin Durant, Andrew Wiggins. The Warriors are better when they have guys who create in some kind of way by themselves. Even when you look at the beginning of this season, before his injury, DeAnthony Melton was like a mini Andre Iguodala in a similar way that Dante DiVincenzo was a mini Andre Iguodala for them, right? Somebody who can knock down threes, play combo guard, rebound their position pretty well, and lock up defensively. It was no wonder the Warriors were doing better when low-key DeAnthony Melton was healthy. You had a player like that, right? So these kind of players are necessary if the Warriors want to be a threat in the playoffs. So getting Jimmy Butler obviously takes that aspect to a greater level. And let's be real, sometimes all it takes is acquiring a player that is going to fire up the team simply due to their presence. As much as it's mental and physical, basketball, like any career/job, is about feeling. Many of us show up to work on payday with a little extra bounce in our step compared to Monday, right? Basketball players are no different. Look at the Lakers since they got Luka. They playing like their girl is watching, right? Everybody cheesing, everybody playing great basketball. Suddenly everybody's bought into the program. You know what I mean? The Warriors did the same thing, man. Like, everybody was calling Steph washed. They said he shouldn't have been an all-star even when it was in his home, it was in the Bay. Like, dog, can you imagine how hard it is to be the focal point of an offense that revolves around off-ball screens, and you have younger teammates who literally don't have the experience to understand how to get you to basketball? Like, let's be real. Stephen Curry has been through multiple stages of the NBA. When it was slower paced, when it was a little more old school, when it started getting more three-point heavy. Like, he has all that experience that these young guys don't have. All they know is this NBA. And on a basic level, all they know is get Steph the basketball. But they don't know, they haven't been through the learning experience to know how to get him the basketball, right? And then on top of that, naturally being, you might be the only player that knows how to create a shot for themselves, when you have the ball and all the pressure is on you. Man, no wonder Steph was scoring 30 points on 30 shots. He was scoring 17 on 25 shots. If you were paying attention to those Warriors games, there were so many times he just looked dull in the face because it's like, I got to direct traffic and Draymond's injured. That's usually his job. Nobody else out here can take the scoring load, right? Because we all are shooters. We all need somebody to pass us the ball. We can't really do it ourselves. And even when I do get the ball to do it myself, I'm getting double teamed. I'm getting blitzed on pick and rolls. I got to pass to somebody else. And it's late in the shot clock. They get a grenade. They got to throw it up. You know what I mean? It just created so much dysfunction, right? Steph Curry is past the stage in his career where he wants to score 50 every night just to be competitive. A couple years ago, he probably would have did that, but now he ain't trying to do all that. So no wonder he looked washed. He needed help, and a lot of his help was hurt. So with the addition of Jimmy Butler, Steph no longer has to just single-handedly babysit them young guys like Moody and Santos and Quentin Post and try to teach them how to play Warriors basketball. Now Steph, and now that Draymond's healthy, and now you have Jimmy, who can do that together and play off each other and take pressure off each other, because Jimmy's drives allow him to kick it to open shooters. His mid-range game brings balance to their three-point heavy offense. He can serve as a lob threat and overall just open up the game for Steph in a variety of ways, even if it isn't really showing up on the box score. Jimmy Butler has always at his core been a great glue guy. Ever since the Warriors got Jimmy Butler, they've played the most Warrior basketball I've seen them play all season, and it has gotten them all the way up to this, potentially snatching a 6th seed in the playoffs, ducking the play-in. The Warriors aren't necessarily back, right? I won't go that far, but their desperation to get Jimmy Butler at the deadline has certainly paid off. I love what I'm seeing from them. I've caught a few of the games. I was actually at the game in Chicago where Jimmy made his debut. Man, it's just like night and day. It's night and day. I think people forget what makes the Warriors the Warriors. It's really not the Steph Curry show like we think it is. Like it takes a lot of specific people or player types, I should say, to fit within that offense. And they found they did a good job trading for Jimmy Butler because he fits that perfectly. Now, I actually want to transition, and I want to talk about the Lakers, because speaking of teams coming back, the Los Angeles Lakers are low-key back in play for the 2nd seed in the West as of late after acquiring Luka Doncic. It hasn't been perfect, right? But dang, have they been balling. The duo of LeBron and Luka has been mind-blowing. To have two guys that have the same effect on teams on one team is just insane. There are times I watch and it's like I literally forget LeBron is out there with the way Luka plays, and then there's like vice versa. LeBron will lead a lineup and then you'll hear the buzzer and here comes Luka Doncic coming from the scores table. It's like, what the heck, bro? What the heck? And then on top of that, Austin Reeves as a third option, man. Oh my gosh, it's such a cheat code. You know, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jared Vanderbilt, they're locking up. Even Gabe Vincent, man. Look at Gabe Vincent, you know, playing better as of late. Jackson Hayes doing his thing, you know, as the big man. JJ Redick has really made this team click. And so much so that it makes me wonder, how realistic is another chapter? Finally, a new generation. How realistic is it that we see Lakers versus Celtics in the NBA Finals? There was a window when LeBron first got to LA where I think some of us figured like, okay, the Lakers are getting there. It might happen. The Celtics are getting there. You know, there's a chance. But obviously, the Lakers won in 2020. While that was going on, the Celtics, they were still taking their L's, right? And not necessarily L's as in losses, but L's as in learning experiences, right? They went through the storm for some years before winning in just last season. And then after that, right? So the Celtics get back on top, but then the Lakers start falling a little bit. And so now it's kind of like, I don't think it's going to happen. But now, though, we are finally in a spot where today's kids may be able to finally experience the Lakers versus Celtics on the final stage, right? Having Luka, having LeBron, Tatum, Brown, that's dope. Both teams are are tops among their conferences. Now, granted, the Cleveland Cavaliers have grown tremendously, right? Darius Garland is healthy. Evan Mobley has taken a leap that we've been wanting him to take for the last couple seasons. Trading for DeAndre Hunter has worked tremendously in their favor, right? Ty Jerome is healthy, and he is like the X factor of the year. Don't get it twisted. Peyton Pritchard is going to win Sixth Man of the Year, but Ty Jerome, they should literally create an X Factor of the Year award and give it to Ty Jerome for what he's been able to do with a healthy season in Cleveland. You know, it ain't going to be easy for Boston with those guys in mind. In fact, the Cleveland Cavaliers have had almost 2 comeback victories versus Boston this season. All their games have been close. But if you're a Cavs fan, I want to caution you when you're thinking about the Boston Celtics, okay? Because it's fun in the moment. But come April and May, the regular season don't mean jack. Take it from me. I watched my 2010-11 Bulls beat the new look Miami Heat, the Heatles, right? The Miami, not 5, not 6, not 7 Heat. Those guys. We beat them 5 consecutive games. Whether it was NBA TV, ESPN, TNT, we beat them. Every time. Close games, games where we had to rally back. 4-0 in the season series, and then we won game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You mean to tell me we won against the new look Miami Heat 5 straight times in one season? You couldn't tell me the Bulls didn't figure them boys out. You couldn't tell me that the NBA Finals wasn't going to be Dallas Mavericks and Chicago Bulls. But again, like I said earlier, it's different when you get to lock in on a team for, say, 2 weeks. And that allowed the Heat to finally say, oh, if we trap D Rose and get in everybody else's chest, the Bulls can't do nothing offensively. And after that, it was a wrap. 4 straight losses. Life come at you fast, right? That's why I ain't been tripping about some of Boston's struggles this year. You know, if you pay attention, you know, to what I've been saying, like, the second ring is always tougher. The Boston Celtics, I ain't even tripping about them. The Cavs are going to be tough. That's for sure. But they are certainly not in the clear just because they won some regular season games. And I think it's the same thing with OKC. Amazing brand of basketball. Probably have the best group of role players in the league. But bruh, Luka is a playoff performer. LeBron been doing this. LeBron been doing this since I was in grade school, bruh. LeBron legit been doing this since the mid-2000s. You got those dudes on one team now? And if OKC, if they run that small lineup, man, if I'm LA, I'm putting a bigger defender, Dorian Finney-Smith on Shea, right? I'm probably putting Austin Reeves on Dort, or maybe put, Luka on Case and Wallace, right? That won't be a major defensive assignment for him. Or shoot, you could even switch with Reeves, right? Maybe you want to put Reeves on Wallace and put Luka on Dort. Who knows? Bron on J-Dub, right? Hayes on Chet / Hartenstein. Like, as a bigger team with that two-headed monster, OKC, I think, would be in trouble because they have a lot of smaller, they have a tendency to run a lot of smaller lineups. But they were my preseason pick, so I'm rolling with them, right? I'm still rolling with OKC to come out the West. They are still a great team. They could find a way. But the NBA Finals ain't always the best teams, man. We know that. I def think there's a lane for Lakers versus Celtics, even if that's not this year. Especially considering the size that, like I said, in that Lakers starting five, I think they would match up solid with Boston. But the Celtics would definitely give them fits with their depth on offense and defense. And we really just saw that in the March 8th game, Lakers versus Celtics. Al Horford, man, he did a great job. I mean, to think how long Al Horford has been in this league and how much he's adjusted to this modern NBA to the point where even at his age, he can hang. He's strong enough to hang with a Luka Doncic. He's mobile enough to hang with a Luka Doncic, even if he's not as quick. You think of LeBron, he's strong enough to hang with LeBron, even though he's not as quick, right? Like, and then again, I think it's just fundamentals, man. He gets in his stance and he decides in his mind, you're not scoring. That's what a lot of defense is. And it was so great to see that from a OG, man, somebody who been through that NBA. You know, I love to see that. Somebody who at the older age shows these youngins like this is how you do it. I'm old and I'm hanging on. I'm guarding Luka better than some of these youngins. I'm guarding LeBron better than some of these youngins. You know, I think it's a lot of combination. Like I said, experience, old man strength. You know, he's mobile enough. You know, as an undersized, he always was an undersized center / power forward. You know, so it was dope to see. I think it would be a great next chapter in the Lakers versus Celtics rivalry. You know, I think some of the term rivalry has lost its flavor in this era because we see so much team movement and things of that nature. But honestly, you know, it would be dope to see, like, again, the Lakers versus Celtics always had different chapters. So it would be nice to finally get a chapter where it matters the most, right? That's where the Lakers versus Celtics rivalry was built. Not just because of the regular season, but because of their finals battles over the years, over the decades. So, you know, I think it would be also a great test for Boston as they chase a repeat. Like, you know, if they have to repeat and go through the Los Angeles Lakers, knowing what that would mean to the franchise and the history, that would be dope. I would love to see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown specifically, you know, get that test. You know, I think that would be a really dope test for them. But yeah, man, Lakers are doing their thing, and you know, it's really dope to see. You know, a couple good organizations right now that are showing flashes of a return to glory. You know, like I said, the Warriors, they're looking good. The Lakers seem to be bouncing back. But are the Lakers a legit finals threat? You know, what would it take for the Warriors to maybe truly get back to championship status? You know, talk to me. Let me know. Put your GM hat on if you have to. You know, let me know. Drop those thoughts and opinions in the comments or on socials. But in the meantime, I actually want to end today's episode with some rapid fire topics, but in the meantime, with the NBA action gradually preparing for the playoffs, here's how you can make sure you don't miss a second of it. If you're hip to the games, that means you yearn for nonstop NBA action. And thankfully, NBA League Pass serves as your ticket to the ultimate basketball experience. Enjoy live games, on-demand replays, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content across a variety of devices just at the tap of a finger. With NBA League Pass, you'll get more games, and that's regular season and playoffs, more features, including multi-view angles, in-depth stats, and behind-the-scenes stories, and more access, of course. Catch your favorite teams and players anytime, anywhere. League passes for fans like us who live the game. Sign up now at NBA.com/LP19MG. That's NBA.com/LP19MG. HUDG is working in affiliation with NBA League Pass and will be compensated for your patronage by utilizing the link provided. All right, so I know I said I wanted to talk a little bit about everything going on in the league, a lot of random topics today. So before I end today's episode, there's still so much that I wanted to address, but like I said, don't want this to be some crazy 2-hour long pod. So I figured I could try my best, because you know I talk too much, to do a little rapid fire section on some other topics around the association. And first up, I want to talk about those Portland Trailblazers, man. I haven't been able to talk about them because I wasn't really catching their games, but I finally caught their recent road game in Cleveland versus the Cavaliers. That went into that was a late game, man. That was a dope game, and I was impressed. I believe it went into overtime. They nearly walked away with a W. I mean, Avdia, man, he had a great game, and it's funny when I think about him on the Blazers because I was lobbying for the Blazers to get him as far back as the 2022-23 season because admittedly, my NBA 2K, my career player, was on the Blazers that year. And I noticed how small their roster was. And I'm like, man, it would be dope if we got like a Draymond or a Ben Simmons, you know what I'm saying? And I knew Denny Avdia was like the great value version of that at the time, right? And he was still developing in Washington. But fast forward, this year he's been great in Portland. He can play defense at his size. He rebounds, and I love how he doesn't play around. A lot of guys play with their food in this league. He is not one of those guys. When he gets a point guard on him, he immediately tells his guys to get out the way, and he posts up, right? And he drew a lot of fouls that game. Like, I just like how he plays the game. He was in attack mode, and it was really dope to see. That's how the game should be played. Keep it simple, man. Don't waste dribbles. Don't waste trying to take advantage. You're like I said in another video, in one of my YouTube videos, a lot of these guys, I feel like they're so overwhelmed by the amount of space in this era. They get like a kid in the candy store and they want to dribble and test their bag. But it's like, nah, man, just get to it. Get to it. And Denny Avdia was doing that all game. It didn't result in a win, but I saw his efforts. They were dope. It was very, very good efforts from him that game. Likewise, I believe if I'm saying it right, Tumani Kamara, the young guy, he gets praised for his defense, but he made a lot of good cuts offensively as well. Obviously Ant Simons, you could tell he's learned so much from Damian Lillard, so much. Their resemblance, man, is uncanny. The sidestep, step back, pound dribble, the go-to move that we've seen Dame do for years. Ant's adapted that into his game. Even, the little kind of stutter steps and change of speeds, like little things you won't really notice if you're just watching the game. But like if you really tapped in and paying attention, a lot of that is what Dame, he was doing that as a youngin because again, the lanes were packed and they were tight. So he had to just do quick moves to just like find any way to get into the lane. I see a lot of that with Ant Simons. Shaedon Sharpe, he's growing into a nice scorer. Scoot Henderson, he's been figuring it out. It's been great to see them play some really good basketball. And even like Chauncey Billups, man, shout out Chauncey Billups. I felt like he was on the hot seat for a real quick second. There was a little bit of time where I felt like, people were saying his job was on the line, but they started winning and they actually look really good. Like they got a bright future. Like I said, I will say in that Cavaliers game though, Ant Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, and even Denny Avdia, they seem to be taking turns trying to be the hero that game. And it resulted in some tough possessions to watch down the stretch. And it showed their youth, right? It showed their immaturity. And, those are things that are just going to get better by experience. But if they and Chauncey Billups can iron those situations out, those games can be winnable. I really thought they were going to be able to beat the Cavaliers, but it was just those little things down the stretch where I was like, you can't be doing that. But Portland, they're on the outside of the play-in right now, but the future looks like it. Listen, we always talk about the future, but the future for Portland looks like it's going to be sooner than we all thought. So I definitely wanted to give my flowers to them. And then next in line, man, is an individual player. I'm kind of switching gears here. I need to talk about this one guy, man, and if you know, you might have an idea who I'm talking about, but it's Ja Morant, man. A lot of people have been grieving the season that he's had this year, mainly because of his drop-off in scoring. And I got something to say about that, because I feel like people ain't really been paying attention. To the people who told him to stop dunking and to stop playing aggressive, some would say reckless, y'all created this. I hope y'all know y'all created this. Like, sure, he made a wise decision to control his game and play a bit slower. Everybody had to do it. Unfortunately, it took injuries for Derrick Rose to realize that. At some point, Russell Westbrook had to realize that, right? But, obviously wanting to play slower because of injuries, that makes sense. But see, now when it results in a drop off in scoring and he doesn't look as electric and as highlight worthy as he used to be, everybody's like, what happened? I even seen somebody say, oh, Ja Morant's already washed. And I hate that term. I hate that term so much nowadays. And I'm like, he's doing what y'all wanted him to do. He stopped dunking. He stopped going 100 miles per hour, right? Going into full gear on fast breaks and trying to literally jump over your 7-footer. He stopped all that. And now you wonder why he looks different. Right. And see now, because teams are clogging the paint, he's not able to get in there. Right. And apparently he's got a shoulder injury, he said. So that's likely why he hasn't been shooting as well from deep, especially, other than free throws. And he has no other way to score now. Right. Now that he isn't playing the way he did before, Ja Morant admittedly is a little bit more limited than he used to be. And I think he's going through that phase of trying to figure that out. Again, he has shown flashes of an improved mid-range game. I will give him that. I've been lobbying him to get that since his rookie year. Let's just be real. And I'm glad to see that, but still, this is what I was saying when I'm sorry, not all you, but some fans were comparing him to like Derrick Rose and everything like that, because I'm like, you don't understand that there's a difference now. I hope y'all are seeing it now if you haven't. There's a difference between Allen Iverson, Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, so many other point guards, and what Ja Morant is doing, right? Allen Iverson wanted to be like Mike. So he had all the fadeaways and the drifters when he couldn't get to the rim. And that made him even more of a cheat code. Like, some of the shots Allen Iverson was able to hit at 6 foot is just insane. Insane. Like, you could tell he put in the work to be able to do that. Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook, they came up in an era where the mid-range was a necessity. They couldn't rely on their athleticism, and the game wasn't spaced out to where they could just do it 24/7 and not have. No, they had a fundamental brand of basketball. They knew that if I have to build my game, I need building blocks if I'm going to be successful long term, right? So Derrick Rose used his handle to get in the lane, but he was also automatic from the mid-range. He had a pull-up, he had a snatchback, he had a step back, he had a sidestep. He had pivots, even into his floater, right? He wasn't just shooting floaters. He would often pivot into his floater, fake one-way pivot float game. Like, Derrick Rose built blocks on his game. Likewise, I think Russell Westbrook, right? His pull-up, He was different from Derrick Rose, because Russ was never like this half-court showman, bucket getter. A lot of his stuff, he gets to it in 1 or 2 dribbles, right? Russell Westbrook, his pull-up around 2011 became automatic, right? It got to a point where, okay, now we have to respect that, right? We know Russell Westbrook can bulldoze his way through the lane, but now he's got this pull-up, so in transition, I'm backpedaling, preparing for the drive, but dang, now he's got a pull-up, so I have to honor that too, right? He became tougher to guard once he did that, and then obviously that transferred to the half court. He would hit you with a pull-up, he'd hit you with the bank shot, he'd hit you with the hezzy pull, and then obviously he would sometimes go between the legs into the hezzy pull, again, building those counter moves and building his game more than just dunking and layups, right? And that's where Ja Morant has not been at yet, because so much of his game was layups and dunks and floaters and free throws, right? So my thing is, if I'm Ja, I would have been studied these dudes. Again, this is why we got to stop with the analytics and telling these guys mid-range don't matter. This is how you should play the game. Play fast, even if it means getting more turnovers. Like, nah, bro, just play basketball, man. Play basketball. Build your game the way it's supposed to be played. This is how Ja Morant can get back to being a lethal player offensively without being limited to layups and floaters. Build your mid-range game. Get you a step back, find a go-to move, have something to where when they're jamming you up and you can't get anything, you have something else to go to, right? Because if Ja Morant is going to take a step back on his aggression and his athleticism, then he has to take a step up with his fundamentals and start adding other skill sets to his game. That's my thing with Ja Morant. And I'm speaking with so much passion because I hate the way everybody started talking about him. Like, that's why I always say, man, play the game the way you like to play the game. Everybody's body is different. Yes, injuries happen. Unfortunately, John Morant has had his share that have kept him out for longer periods of time. But, man, play the game the way you want to play. Because even Russell Westbrook, look how durable he's been, as athletic as he was and powerful as he was. Everybody said, oh, John Morant, don't be like D Rose. Russell Westbrook's been durable. Like I said, we watched Allen Iverson get knocked on his butt every game, and that didn't stop him from playing how he played. Just let players play the game and let them figure it out. Because now you got guys overthinking like, oh, well, they're telling me to play like this, so I got to stop. Man, so if I'm John Morant, man, I'm building my game. I'm building my game the way the 2000s point guards had to build their game because that's what mattered. That's how you get buckets long term. And John Morant, I feel like hopefully he takes this offseason to figure those things out. But moving eastward, NBA fans and media have a way of speaking things into existence, just like I was talking about with John Morant. And apparently LaMelo Ball's days as a Hornet may be numbered. The last few years he's been a part of rumors and fan-made trades, and we know how that goes. Eventually, at some point, those trades are probably going to come true. But see, that's interesting to me because the Hornets would essentially be rebuilding a rebuild. Like I said before the season, my expectations for the Hornets were play-in. Right? LaMelo got them there before, and I had faith that he would do it again. But injuries, again, it got to them, man. LaMelo, he's in and out the lineup. Brandon Miller got the season-ending injury. It just sucks. It sucks. And I think there's still a lane for a rebuild, but it would be interesting if they really were to decide to move on from LaMelo, or if LaMelo decides to move on from them. Because a lot of people are saying, oh, like he should go to the Clippers, right? Steve Ballmer, the Intuit Dome, Bright Lights, LA, he's back home, yada, yada. And obviously he gives them a player for the future that they can rely on long term. But it's tough, right? Because of his injury history. Even if he is putting up 30 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, will better teams be willing to break up established rosters and chemistry for him and his style of play? Again, I've seen the tweets, man. We know that LaMelo Ball, as talented as he is, he takes some bold shots, let's say, and not everybody wants to deal with that, So, what's to say he wouldn't just get traded to Chicago or Brooklyn, right? Teams that are in similar situations. So, I don't know about this one, man, but I wanted to bring it up just because, like, it's something that I saw kind of been out there the last few months. And I want to know what you think because, I'm hoping that this is one of those rumors that die off and they just figure it out in Charlotte because, like I said, LaMelo's a fantastic player. Brandon Miller's a fantastic player. He was looking low-key like an all-star at some points this season. Miles Bridges is still doing what he can do. Like, that's still a solid young trio for that team. So, I think it's more so about the supporting pieces, but obviously those guys just got to stay healthy, man. So, like I said, you can trade LaMelo, but who's to say he would stay healthy, So it's interesting to think about, man, what Charlotte's going to do. Because like I said, they've been trying to rebuild and haven't really hit that breaking point. So, like, trying to rebuild the rebuild is just interesting to me. But you got to let me know what you think. And then another team, man, the Orlando Magic. I did not realize how many of their guys have dropped off from three-point land. I mean, KCP, Jalen Suggs before the injury, Paolo, Wendell Carter, Anthony Black, he done dropped from 39 from 3 to 29 this season. Like, there is a three-point epidemic going on in Orlando, man. And it's sad to see because they were already dealing with so many injuries, man. And they ain't been the same since the first month of the season, pretty much. And that was always their Achilles heel, right? Like, once the Magic get some shooting, it's over with. Because they got the defense. They got the star power in Paolo. Franz Wagner was, he was building to that point. But unfortunately, it's just very hard to win in today's NBA with a slower pace and you're not making threes. Again, like I said, I'm waiting on a team to make slow basketball cool again. If I say what's my NBA wish in this era, I want to see a team play slow and find a way to contend. That's my dream in this NBA. But, it's hard, man, because everybody wants you to play fast and get transition threes and stuff like that. Like I said, I love the Magic because they defend. And like I said, they play a slower game. They're not afraid to play a gritty game. It reminds me of the NBA I grew up loving. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work in this NBA with the value of the three ball the way that it is. So the Magic, unfortunately, man, it hurts to see they ain't been looking good, man. And I think this is their big sign to make some major moves this offseason, right? Because I know they've been lobbying to get a true primary ball handler and get some actual shooters that might be lurking around the market. You know, they should have been on Cam Johnson. They should have been on Quentin Grimes. They should have been on Ant Simons or Kobe White, right? And they didn't make any moves in that regard. So, you know, I think this is the offseason where hopefully the Magic wake up and they're like, yo, we need to make some changes. Like, I thought we were chilling, but nah, we need to make some moves, you know? So I'm rooting for them in that regard because this latter part of the season just hasn't been great for them. And it's sad to see because we know how good they can be. And then lastly, man, I want to end it on a lighter note. Shout out to the OGs. Well, one of these guys ain't really an OG yet, but shout out to these guys getting these milestones, man. Shout out Giannis getting 20,000 points for his career. KD, right, the trusty OGs. KD getting 30,000. LeBron hitting 50,000 for regular season and playoff games. And shout out to Steph. He's likely going to take his rightful place as the sole player in that 4,000 three-pointers made milestone by the time you hear this episode. So I want to show some love ahead of time for him. You know, I feel like milestones aren't appreciated like they once were, man, because time just, I think in the social media era and everything, like time is just like fast, man. Like we're always fishing for the next thing. And like I said, the world just moves fast, man. And we don't seem to appreciate things the way we once did. So shout out to these legends, man. And I love how Giannis was watching his tribute video because for hitting the milestone. Because I'm like, you don't see that. A lot of athletes get caught up in the next thing. You don't always get to stop and smell the roses. So I love that he told Doc, like, hey, there are going to be 1,000 plays. I'm not always going to be able to watch these tribute videos. You know, we always knew Kevin Durant was going to hit this point, you know, even as a young supersonic man. I remember watching him at Texas when I was a kid, and he was like the biggest sensation at the time, and you didn't know if he was a shooting guard or a power forward or a small forward, and, you know, he turned out to be the exact bucket getter we all thought he could be. You know, LeBron obviously just continues to go higher and higher and raise the bar. You know, Steph is incredible. You know, I think Steph is going to be, in 10, 20 years, Steph Curry is still going to be the greatest shooter because of how he did it, you know, how he changed the game. But even coming up again in an era where the NBA was still slower paced, like a lot of guys, the top 3-point list is going to feel weird at some point because it's going to be a lot of new guys because of the volume of threes nowadays. But we're going to see a Damian Lillard, a James Harden, and obviously Steph at the top of that list and be like, yo, I remember, you know, those guys were doing it when it wasn't as cool to do it. So, you know, they get a little extra, you know, respect in that regard. So, like, shout out Steph, man, because he really changed the game. And, you know, his record, I hope, is something that's going to stay for a long time, even with the three-pointer, you know, being what it is today. And, you know, the way I see it, man, the NBA is a blessing. And, you know, these moments help players put that into perspective. You know, we simply just want to make the league, right? So imagine what these milestones feel like for these guys who are way past that, right? They made the league. They became all-stars. They became Hall of Famers. They became champions, and they get to enjoy these milestones. So, you know, you got to show love to these guys because there ain't no reason to be waiting, man. Let people get their flowers while they can smell them. So shout out to those guys, man, continuing to carry that torch. You know, Giannis still got some work to do. Plenty of games left for him, but you know, shout out to the OGs and everybody hitting their milestones because I remember when that used to be a big deal in the NBA, and I didn't want to just bypass that. So there were some rapid fire-esque topics that came to mind as I prepared this episode. Definitely be sure to hit me up on the socials, comment on YouTube, tag me with your thoughts on any of those so I can read your thoughts on these topics or even others that I may not have mentioned. As always, you know, feel free to, you know, throw something else out there like, hey, Des, what you think about this person? Or, hey, Des, I was watching this person and, you know, or I was watching this team and I saw this. What do you think? You know, I love all that. But with that, we have made it to the end of another Hip to the Games episode. From the Suns' struggles to my fears with the Indiana Pacers, the Warriors' success, the Lakers' chances at a return to glory, and other topics, this episode was loaded. But as always, these were just my thoughts, so I want to hear from you. You can tweet the show at Hip to the Games or tag me directly on Twitter and IG at Desmond Powell _ and share your thoughts on any of the topics discussed today as I would love to hear or read your thoughts. And I simply want to say thank you for listening to another episode of H2DG. all for the love of the best combo there is. And of course, here's a huge final shout out to you for being hip to the games. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at Desmond Powell _ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.